another African leader toppled by the army. Whose turn will it be next?
It was July 30th, 2023, just weeks after the military coup in Niger. The army supporters gathered at the French embassy in Niamey, hundreds of them. They set fire to the embassy's door.
Africa, a continent renowned for its vibrant and diverse cultures, boasts an immense cultural heritage, natural wealth, and captivating tourist destinations. However, the region has now been marked by a concerning trend of military takeovers. The coup in Gabon is the latest in a series of recent coups on the African continent. In fact, 5 other countries in the region have also witnessed such events, with Niger experiencing one just last month. And fingers are swiftly pointed towards Western countries as potential contributors to this turmoil. But what lies behind this surge in military coups in Africa? Are there common threads connecting these events, or do unique circumstances drive each case? And what role, if any, do Western countries play in these developments? Let's delve deeper into these questions. The countries in question are Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea, Niger, and Gabon. All of them have experienced a shift to military leadership following coups that ousted civilian governments. The most recent changes occurred in Niger and Gabon. While these coup leaders claim public support, many observers view their actions as cynical power plays. It's essential to note that each situation is unique, and making straightforward comparisons across all 6 countries can be challenging. Each country has its own unique situation. Take Gabon, for example. The coup there happened after President Ali Bongo's controversial re-election. His father had been in power for many years, and people believed he manipulated the election. Many celebrated what they saw as the end of the Bongo era. In contrast, Niger had a peaceful civilian-to-civilian transfer of power in 2021, which was a big deal for them. But then, a coup took place in July, seemingly driven by internal power struggles. The president was making changes in the military, and one of his generals, Abdurrahman Chiani, turned against him when there were rumors about his job. So when we consider the local context and specific conditions in each country, we find differences in these coups. However, there are also common themes that can help us understand what's happening. First, many people felt that the civilian governments in these countries were not meeting their needs. It's important to remember that these are some of the poorest nations globally, even though they possess valuable natural resources. For example, Gabon and Chad have oil, Niger and Mali have uranium, and Guinea and Burkina Faso have gold and other valuable minerals. However, this wealth hasn't been benefiting regular citizens. People have become disenchanted with how the political elites have handled power. The key issues driving the coups in West and Central Africa are essentially economic problems, corruption, and insecurity. This leads us to our second point: the security challenges that these countries, particularly Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are facing. All these countries are located in a region known as the Sahel, which has become a stronghold for armed groups associated with Al-Qaeda and ISIL. According to one report, nearly half of the global deaths from terrorism in 2022 occurred in the Sahel. This surpassed the combined numbers for South Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. With the escalating security and humanitarian crisis in the Sahel, people have grown increasingly frustrated with their own government's inability to address these challenges. In Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the coup leaders have cited the security situation as part of their reasons for seizing power. Another significant common theme is the growing opposition to France and its role in the region. France is the former colonial power in these countries, and this relationship has deep historical roots, going back to the era of the slave trade. Many people believe that this exploitation hasn't ended, but has taken on new forms, often referred to as neocolonialism. It suggests that France maintains an unequal relationship with its former colonies, prioritizing its own political and economic interests. One example frequently cited is the heavy involvement of French companies in mining natural resources in these nations, such as operating uranium mines in Niger to supply France's nuclear power plants. While this does generate revenue for Niger's government, it raises concerns. France has also been a major donor of aid to the region, adding complexity to the situation. Nevertheless, the backlash against what many perceive as France's excessive influence in its former colonies is a significant factor. In several recent coups, people celebrated the overthrow of civilian leaders because they believed these leaders were too close to France. In countries like Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, the crowds weren't supporting the coup out of love for it, they were expressing frustration with their own political leaders and blaming France for not addressing their problems, but instead exploiting their resources, leaving them in poverty. The anti-French sentiment also ties into the security challenges we mentioned in the Sahel region. France has been a major Western country sending troops to combat armed groups there. It initially deployed soldiers to Mali in 2013 and achieved some initial success. However, even after several years of French military presence, the situation didn't significantly improve. Their focus has been primarily on counter-terrorism, which hasn't brought much benefit to the local population. In fact, these extremist groups have gained strength by exploiting local disputes. Some people started to suspect that France might be involved in a double game, where they benefit from the conflicts in the region. It's important to note that there's no concrete proof of this, but many people in the area believe it. This narrative has been embraced by several coup leaders to gain public support. They've positioned themselves as anti-French and anti-colonial to bolster their credibility. In Mali and Burkina Faso, the leaders have expelled all French troops, and the Niger leaders have called for the withdrawal of the 1,500 French soldiers stationed there. Apart from France, the US also has some interest in the African soil. Many people haven't paid much attention to the fact that the US government has direct ties to numerous coup attempts in Africa. Since 2008, US officers have been involved in at least 9 coup attempts, successfully executing 8 of them. These events unfolded in 5 West African countries, including 3 times in Burkina Faso, 3 times in Mali, and once each in Guinea, Mauritania, and the Gambia. The reason for this intervention is quite simple: economic gains. Vice President Kamala Harris has announced an increase in US investment in Africa with the goal of fostering economic growth. Alongside the anger directed at Western countries, something else noteworthy is happening: growing support for Russia following some of the coups. We've witnessed significant crowds waving Russian flags. As France's influence waned, Russia stepped in to fill the void. Russia has a history of engaging with African states dating back to the Cold War, often using anti-colonial rhetoric in its interventions. One of the primary ways Russia has expanded its influence is through the Wagner Group, a private military company with ties to the Russian government. They provide soldiers to governments in exchange for access to natural resources. However, the Wagner Group is more than just a mercenary outfit. It's also involved in logging, information technology, and mining. It serves as an alternative partner for governments in the region seeking alternatives to Western alliances. Wagner has been active in several African countries, including Mali, since 2021. The coup leaders in Mali enlisted Wagner mercenaries to assist in combating armed groups in the Sahel. There have also been discussions about military leaders in Burkina Faso and Niger considering the use of Wagner forces, although there hasn't been any official confirmation of this yet. The future of the Wagner Group's involvement in Africa has become more uncertain since the leader of Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, tragically died in a plane crash in Russia. Some people suspect that President Putin may have been involved in the crash as retribution for Prigozhin's mutiny against the Russian state in June. However, the Kremlin has denied any role in his death. It's not readily apparent that removing Prigozhin means Wagner's operations will just disappear. Whether it's still called Wagner, or if it continues under a different name with the same group of people, now closely monitored by their allies and more accountable to Putin, they will likely want to maintain the machinery that Wagner has established on the ground. It has served several purposes, such as gaining access to resources and undermining the West's credibility. When we consider all the factors at play in the coups across Western and Central Africa, there's a lot happening. There are internal issues within each country, regional concerns like security challenges in the Sahel, and larger geopolitical forces at work. These include the pushback against France and Russia's ambitions to expand their influence. All of these factors contribute to the sense that coups are becoming more common, and the big question is whether more countries will follow suit. That's it for today. And now we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do subscribe to the channel if you like our content. We will catch you in the next one. Bye.